Do you feel like your low back is compensating for your upper back or your hips? Well, today's video is for you. Keep watching. So today's video will be going over thoracolumbar dissociative exercises and lumbopelvic dissociative exercises. But before we get into that, you have to first understand, what the hell did I just say? Dissociative exercises are exercises focused on separating movement between different regions. This is really important to do if you have a hard time isolating one region of your body, especially when a task only requires that one region of the body. But it's also really good to understand and develop that proprioception to use the whole entire body as a unit rather than relying on a single region to do all the work that you're doing. In particular, some people might get some back pain in the low back because their upper back isn't really moving so well. And when they try to do upper back exercises or mobility exercises for the upper back, they find that it's still just the low back that's moving. Likewise, some people also feel that their hips aren't moving that well, and so the low back does a lot of extra work, and then when they try to do hip exercises, that they really can't separate the two movements together. When you get pain in one region due to an adjacent area not moving so well, this is called regional interdependence. Basically, when the hips or the upper back aren't moving to the fullest functional capabilities, the low back will pick up the slack and do a little bit more work. Now, is that to say that the low back shouldn't be compensating? That's not really what we're trying to focus on. Honestly, your body works as a whole all the time. Your low back always works with your hips. Your low back always works with your upper back or thoracic spine. It's not really about not using the low back at all. It's just about making those adjacent areas a little bit more efficient with what they're able to do. These exercises that we'll be doing are particularly good for certain conditions. One called thoracolumbar syndrome. We did do a video about this in the past. You can find it here. These exercises are also good for another condition called hip spine syndrome or sacroiliac joint syndrome. Basically, these conditions occur due to compensational movement patterns. Today, we'll be starting off with the thoracolumbar dissociative exercises. We'll be doing 2 exercises for that. And then we'll be finishing off with lumbopelvic dissociative exercises. We'll be doing 2 exercises for that. Altogether, we have 4 exercises. You can do all of them, or if you notice that you only need the upper portion or the later portion, then just focus on those exercises. All right, let's get started. All right, so the first 2 exercises that we'll be doing is going to be on the floor. Please use a padded mat, like a yoga mat or a gym mat. Basically, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be positioning ourselves so that we're flexing our lumbar spine as much as possible. The reason why we'll be doing this is so that once we maximally flex the low back, it'll lock it out of contributing to any of the movements that we'll be doing thereafter. The first exercise we'll be doing is going to be a rotational based exercise. We're going to be doing thoracic rotations, but we're going to be modifying your general thoracic rotation exercise so that it's really just focusing in on the upper back. What you're going to do is you're going to start by going into this Japanese sit position where your bum is right on your heels. From this position, you're going to bring both elbows down to the ground and let that low back round as much as possible. Because once it's rounded as much as possible, it won't really contribute to the rest of the exercise as much as it would normally do. From here, both elbows on the ground, then you're going to have one hand just right behind your head. You're going to rotate your upper back towards the ceiling. Imagine your body's in a tube, so you don't want to be leaning to the side in order to accomplish that. You're going to keep your spine as central as possible, and then you're going to rotate until you can't rotate anymore. So at this point, your elbow will point towards the ceiling. You can hold this position for a few seconds, take a nice breath, and breathe out, and then come back down to complete a repetition. You do anywhere between 5 to 10 repetitions. Take your time, because the goal is to maximally mobilize the thoracic spine. After about 5 to 10 repetitions, you'll just do the alternate side. So you're just gonna place your other arm on the floor, other arm on your head, and then rotate. Once again, making sure that you're staying as midline as possible. And as you notice in the video, you can probably see that my low back is not really contributing to this movement so much. It's just mostly my upper back, my shoulder and shoulder blade that are moving. So that's exercise number 1 to dissociate thoracic spine from lumbar spine. Exercise number 2 is about improving flexion extension mechanisms in the upper back. Because we're still trying to max out our lumbar spine and prevent it from contributing to the exercise, you're going to be still staying in this Japanese sit position, except for now, I like to call this position the Sphinx position for no particular reason. You're gonna have your hands flat on the floor. And what we're going to do is a cat-camel or cat-cow type of movement. So unlike your normal cat-cow where you move your whole entire spine, but starting in this Japanese sit position and being crouched over in the low back, it won't really contribute to the movement, and you'll see that in this video. From here, I'm gonna keep my hands and palms flat on the floor, and I'm going to do go into the cow position, spreading that upper back. Now you can notice my thoracic spine is fully flexed, and I'm gonna come back down and go into thoracic extension as much as possible. And as you can see, you can actually still see my lumbar spine still flex forwards. It'll kind of be pushing my upper back into extension. You can probably notice that right now in this video. And I'm gonna look up with my head to encourage upper thoracic extension as well. You can take a few breaths there. You could do anywhere between 5 to 15 repetitions. Honestly, you could, whatever really feels good in terms of mobilizing the upper back. Now, if you tend to have issues with your workouts, this is a really good way to warm your upper back up, especially if you're the type to do heavy bench press or heavy squats, where you need to be pretty good at dissociating these two regions from each other. All right, that wraps up our thoracolumbar dissociative exercises. Next, we're going to go into our lumbopelvic exercises. Now we're going to be doing our lumbopelvic dissociative exercises. The goal here is to move the hips while not moving the low back. And some of the best exercises that you could do is the bird dog and dead bug exercises. So we'll be going over those exercises right now. We'll be modifying them a little bit so that you can really hone in and self-cue the controlling mechanisms for both these exercises. The first one we're going to be doing is a dead bug, but we're going to be modifying it slightly. So what you're going to do is start by lying down on your back on a padded surface, and you're not really going to flatten out your low back completely because that's not a really natural curve. The natural lumbar curve is actually slightly extended. So if you should be able to fit roughly around 3 fingers in the small of your low back, okay? And that's doing so without you crushing your fingers. From here, you're gonna keep one hand down there. You're gonna raise both legs off the ground, and you're gonna raise your other arm off the ground. So from this position, you're going to extend opposite limbs. And what you're going to do is you're going to feel your core engage, but you should feel that as you extend these limbs, and you don't want to go until you're rested, you're hovering above the ground, you're actually not going to be compressing the fingers that you have down at your low back. If you find that your back crushes your fingers because you're going into flexion there, that means you're not really controlling that lumbopelvic region that well. So from here, you're going to come back up, and you're going to go for about a 5 to 10 second hold because you really want to work on increasing the core engagement so that your lumbar spine is nice and neutral, and you're training this movement. So basically, as you go into hip extension, you're trying to make sure that your lumbar spine stays neutral, separating the two movements from each other. After you finish doing about 5 to 10 repetitions on one side, you just switch hands and then just complete repetitions on the other side. Once again, making sure that your lumbar spine isn't crushing your fingers. The next exercise that we'll be doing is the bird dog exercise. And this one's a little bit tougher to self-cue, so we're going to be using a tool like a foam roller to help us. So this next exercise is going to be a modified bird dog. We're not going to complete a full bird dog. We're just in the beginning stages of training ourselves how to separate movement between our low back and hips. So we're going to grab any foam roller. You don't have to get a fancy one like mine. You can just use a regular foam roller. It's just going to be placed on our back to indicate that we're in neutral pelvic rotation. So first thing you're going to do is go into this quadruped position, hands and knees on the ground. Then you're going to place this foam roller right on that low back region. You're going to balance it so that it doesn't roll off your back. So once you have the foam roller set up on your back, basically this will be an indicator whether or not you're hyperextending or rotating through the pelvis. And that'll be indicated mostly. You'll either feel the foam roller wobble side to side, or you might even notice that it falls down to the ground completely. So from this quadruped position, you're going to make sure that foam roller stays as still as possible on your back. You're going to raise one leg off the ground, and you're going to extend it without allowing that foam roller to fall off. A little bit of movement is going to be a little natural, but the main goal is that you should feel it wobble as little as possible when you pull your leg in and out. From there, you're going to a few repetitions here, and you could do anywhere between 5 to 10 repetitions. Make sure to focus on bracing your core and make sure you're still breathing. After about 5 to 10 repetitions of that exercise, you're going to switch sides, keep that core braced, keep that pelvic in neutral rotation as much as possible, lift that leg up, and then bring it back down. When you're doing this exercise, it's really important that you pay attention to what's going on with that foam roller. Notice how much pressure it's placing on one side of your back versus the other, because it's going to be really tough to know whether or not you're rotating otherwise, unless you have a friend coaching you through this whole entire movement. Even if you have a mirror next to you, the foam roller is a little bit better because you really don't want to be rotating with your neck, looking at the mirror while you're doing this exercise. You want to keep everything else out of the equation, because the goal of the exercise is to separate movement between the lumbar region and the pelvis. All right, that wraps up our video on dissociative exercises that you can do for both the thoracolumbar region and the lumbopelvic region. If you have any questions at all regarding these exercises or any other exercises that you might want to do, let me know in the comments below. If you like the video, give it a like. I can make more just like this if you want more advanced versions of these exercises. If you're new to my channel, please hit subscribe, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.